about it for a little bit. There we go. All right, hello and welcome.
Hi.
So I guess I'll put myself up just so you all aren't like staring at me while I talk. So thank you for joining us for our first ever Superheroines Con. I'm Carolyn No, the executive director of Superheroines, etc., and my pronouns are she, her. If you're not familiar with Superheroines, we are a nonprofit that fights for representation and inclusion in geek culture. You can check us out online at superheroines.etc.org and see all of the really cool events that we're doing. You can also join us in the Discord afterwards. We'll drop those links into the chat. And we do encourage you to engage with us on social media by using the hashtag SheCon2020. Before we begin, we want to invite you in acknowledging the land we occupy that sustains us. Every community owes its existence and vitality to generations from around the world who contributed their hopes, dreams, and energy to making the history that led to this moment. Some were brought here against their will, some were drawn to leave their distant homes in hope of a better future. And just making sure no one's texting me about something being wrong. And some have lived on this land for more generations than can be counted. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. So we begin this effort to uncover what has been buried by acknowledging that we are not the first stewards of the land we call home, honoring previous tenders of the land, and expressing gratitude for access to the land. We definitely encourage you to investigate further. We pay respects to the elders, past and present. And we would like you to take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together here today. Please join us in uncovering such truths at any and all public events. Acknowledgement is just the beginning, and we do encourage you to learn more. So we are streaming live to YouTube. You can ask questions in the comments.
I do encourage you to learn more.
I just started myself in the other stream. So make sure you send comments in. We will be checking the feed for that and making sure that our panelists get to see them and can answer them. So I am going to turn it over to our panelists and remove myself and allow you all to introduce yourself.
Hi. Do you want to go first, Chrisha?
Sure. So my name is Chrisha Anderson. My pronouns are she, her. I am a licensed professional clinical counselor. I am in private practice in the Cincinnati, Ohio area. And I have my PhD in human behavior. So I do a lot of research in fandom and its impact on mental health.
And I'm Catherine McKenna, and my pronouns are also she, her. My background is I have an MA in English Lit from the University of Connecticut, and currently I'm working in communications with the federal government in Canada.
So we are here today to talk about our podcast.
Yes.
So, yeah, we have a podcast called The Fangirl Business. We've been doing it for a year now. Did you realize that? It's been a year?
It's like, I know I hadn't thought about that. But we did start recording in August, didn't we? Even though we started broadcasting in September. I hadn't put that together. Oh my gosh. Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary. So we started, a year ago. The Fangirl Business is a podcast about the show Supernatural, which is going into its 15th and final season now. So, the reason that I noticed that it's been a year is because we started the Fangirl Business because of San Diego Comic-Con last year, 2019. So Supernatural, for those of you who don't know, has a really big presence at San Diego Comic-Con. It's a big old deal. And so last year it was going to be their last appearance. And it was, how would you describe it, Catherine?
I called it a black void of despair, I think, at the time.
That's accurate. Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't expecting anything because I don't have a history with San Diego Comic-Con at all. And I just happened to kind of pick up a live audio stream of the actual event. And oh my gosh, it hit me like a Mack truck. I was just, oof. I think it was because the guys were so emotional. And I think that set everybody going. So the fandom had a really emotional time around San Diego Comic-Con for sure.
Yeah. And so you and I sort of put our heads together and we're just sort of like, how can we help? Like, we just saw all of these people in pain and we were in pain and we just like had no idea where to channel that. And so we were like, oh, let's make a podcast and we can talk about our own sucking void of despair. And maybe that will help someone else.
And I mean, it started off there, but we've had a really fun time doing it. I think one of the things that we wanted to do going into it was to kind of give voice to the authentic feelings that people were having about such a beloved show coming to an end. And a lot of the time those feelings can be invalidated by people outside of the fandom community. And people can feel really isolated. So I was, I was, we were talking about it and we were kind of brainstorming, and we'd already been having these great discussions on Twitter about the show from like the very end of season 14. And a couple of times people had said like, you two should do a podcast. And we're like, like,
you're so funny.
Yeah, right. And so but when this happened, we felt really motivated to do something, and people had already talked about that and said we had a good rapport. And so we kind of decided to jump the gun and go for it. And I'm so glad that we did. Yeah.
Well, it's definitely worth talking about. We're here at this con today to talk about feminist creators. Yes. And I just want to state very clearly that you and I had no idea what the hell we were doing.
No.
I might hazard to say that we still don't always or often know what the hell we're doing.
Accurate.
This is very much a winging it kind of a thing. Because, like you and I met on Twitter. Like, you're in Canada. I'm in Ohio. So like we've never been in the same physical space.
No.
We've never even been in the same country at the same time. But yeah, it was the end of season 14, if I remember correctly. And we were both on Twitter screeching about Castiel and his choices. He's like, oh, all the way. Angel on my shoulder over here. Yeah.
I've got one on my t-shirt over here.
Yeah. Nice. Yes. We were in a similar place when we were choosing wardrobe. Yeah. So yeah, we met on Twitter and just were fangirling on Twitter as one does. And I think you must have DM'd me. It just like, I don't know, privately start screeching so that our whole timeline wasn't just all capital letters all the time.
Yeah, that's essentially what happened. So it was very organic. And when we started off, like, I'd listened to one podcast one time and I had no idea how to record them. I had no idea like any of that kind of stuff. But I think that we kind of went into it with a general idea of what we wanted to do, even if we weren't sure about the technology and all of that kind of stuff. So we kind of think about it as fangirling, fun, and feelings. And that's kind of the feel of our podcast. We have some real feels, but we also have some real fun, and we do a lot of fangirling. And anyone who's listened to the podcast knows the range of squeak that can come out of both of us.
It's true. You especially have a real high pitch.
I go very high.
Well, yeah, and I think one of the reasons that you and I loved talking so much is so I have a mental health background, and my research has been in science fiction fandom, specifically supernatural fandom, and its impact on mental health. And then you have the academic background from like the literary perspective, and so I kept bringing this like their choices and their behaviors and like what are the dynamics, and then you were like, oh, but from a storytelling perspective they're tapping this, and it was like, oh wow, because from a mental health perspective, like this, and so like we just kept like, I don't know, like getting different thoughts and feelings and stuff churning, because again, I'm assuming that most people that are here probably have seen Supernatural, but if you haven't, which is totally fine and you should, not to tell you how to live, but you should. Supernatural is, as much as it's a TV show, it's an epic. I mean, it's an incredibly detailed, incredibly nuanced, incredibly rich piece of fiction. And so it gets this sort of, I don't know, this bad rap, I feel like, from a lot of more mainstream, like even in the sci-fi community, people are just like, oh, Supernatural, and it's like, there are, like, how many academic friends do we have that are like hardcore Supernatural friends? Like, I've lost count at this point, the number of PhDs and master's level academics that love to pick this show apart. Not to mention the other, millions of people that also love to dig in there, because you can dig into this show from so many different perspectives, so many different disciplines and backgrounds, and there's just a lot there, and it holds up. So it's just like fun. And so like you and I had fun talking about it and digging into it, and we would go down these rabbit holes that were just like so much fun. And so eventually it was like, maybe we should have some of these conversations somewhere where other people can hear them. Like, maybe that would be helpful to others. And a podcast was born.
That's right. Yes, it was born rough and
painfully.
But I think it's become something really special. And we've, I'm really proud of what we've accomplished in just about a year since we started. We've got 40 full episodes. We've got 6 mini episodes. We've been heard on every habitable continent around the world. So like not Antarctica, but everywhere else. And we have listeners in 49 countries and 513 cities worldwide as of today when I checked our stats. Everywhere from LA to New York City to Cairo, Egypt to Melbourne, Australia, Israel, Spain, all over the world. And so it's really grown, I think, a lot more than we thought it would. Like I was going to be thrilled if we had, like 10 people listening.
Right.
So I'm pretty proud of what it's grown into as we've been figuring things out. So did you want to talk a little bit about the technical process of putting it all together a little bit?
Yeah. So again, we had no idea what we're doing. We had never done anything like this before. Like, we are not in the IT field. We are not in anything akin to that. My husband's in IT, and so he gave a couple suggestions, I guess, for places to start, because I literally was like, it's a great idea. no idea what to do with it. And so, yeah, I mean, we went through a lot of technical play because we were trying to find a place to record, like software to use to record. And because we're in different places, at first we were trying to record from the internet, basically. So you and I would connect to some kind of software and then record there. And then that was a nightmare because there was always lag, and then we were not synced up, and then it was trying to figure out how to sync it up, and it was like a mess. And we tried Zoom. This was a year ago, before everyone in the entire universe used Zoom, and we struggled with that too for some reason. Like there was lag on that.
We did it. There was lag at first because we were trying to do video and audio when we were recording. We were like, we need to see each other. And then we figured out that we didn't really need to see each other, and it got a lot better. So now we just kind of listen as we're recording. But it ended up being we used Audacity to record on both of our separate computers rather than recording together online. And then at the same time, we have a Zoom call going so we can hear each other and talk and do the back and forth live. And then Chrisha sends her audio to me, and then I get to editing, which was a whole process to learn. And I actually had a lot of fun with the learning process. I'd never done anything like it before. Now I know what certain words look like in like audio form, like on a screen. So, and I can tell like which of us is which by just looking at the audio files.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. We have different laughs, and so they show very differently on the audio format. Yeah. And I learned how to put in audio clips and all of that kind of stuff. So I think we kind of stumbled our way into a good format for doing things technologically in different places in the world. And so I think we just wanted to share this for anyone who's interested in doing creative stuff within podcasts yourself. Like you don't have to have it all figured out. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to do it in the same room. You don't have to be in the same country. You don't have to be in the same continent. Don't let anything limit you from what you want to do, because you can learn, and technology is so incredible these days. It can make you sound really good.
Well, and one thing that I was really fascinated by is that getting our podcast up on like Apple, getting it up on, all of those big podcasting sites that you hear about was like super easy.
Yeah.
You didn't have to jump through like hoops or anything. You don't have to pay for anything. You don't have to, it was just like click, click. Oh, I can get our podcast on my iPhone now. Like, just like, all of the, like David Tennant does a podcast is right next to ours. And I'm like, what? I know. Yeah, it's really wild how easy some of it is, because I expected it to be a process or really difficult. It's really not.
And you were the one that did all of the initial registration and stuff. So, our hosting site is Buzzsprout. So everything gets uploaded there. Once the Audacity file is done editing on my computer, we upload it to Buzzsprout, and then it once you register to all of these different places, it kind of goes out from there. How did you do that? Because you were the one that did that, and I thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah, a lot of it Buzzsprout walks you through. As a matter of fact, I got an email from them, I don't know, yesterday, that Amazon Music, that we can get ours up there now. So they are, I have to like click for that a little bit later. But yeah, they walk you through all the different ones. And some of them, it's kind of strange. Some of them you have to submit your podcast to, and then some of them, like Google Podcasts or something like that, they just like, you just go up. Like if you have it's really wild. And I'm like, okay.
It is. But I mean, we're probably on about 30 different platforms, and we only signed up for maybe like of 6 or 7 total. So once you get out there, it's like other places start to pick you up and other places kind of start to find you, and then it just kind of spreads from there. So we're kind of all over the place, which is great. We have a question.
How much research did you do before you recorded a podcast, or did you wing it? Yeah, we winged it. I'm not sure that that's what I would recommend for other people. We just did a lot of trial and error. Like we tried, I think Zencaster was the first software that we used, and we didn't like it. And then we tried we did Buzzsprout, and then we did like that. We tried the Zoom calls, we tried Skype calls, we tried, lots of different things, trying to decide what gave us the best way to interact, but also have the best recording. So, I mean, there was, many episodes that we have recorded that we ended up scrapping because either the fandom moved faster than we could release the content, because this fandom moves quick, or we just didn't like the quality of whatever it was. So, I mean, that's not the question, but don't be afraid to just try stuff. Just keep throwing stuff at the wall and see what sticks. I think we should probably share the saga of the microphones, because that's I still have feelings about the saga of the microphones. We have lasting trauma from microphone related issues. Gosh.
So I had my friend loaned me a version of this microphone to start out, which is a really nice microphone. And then eventually I got my own, but I didn't realize for like the first 5 episodes that we recorded that you had to like turn it on in Audacity to that microphone. So I was just recording through my laptop and I was like, why is the sound quality so crappy? This is supposed to be a really nice microphone. What's going on? So that was part of the saga on my end. How about you?
Well, then you got it figured out, and then somehow mine got disconnected. And so we had one, there were several where, I was using my, quote unquote proper mic, and you had the echoey background, and then you got your microphone plugged in, and then mine wasn't. And it was just, just like, to pull the hair out. But I will say that, so Rob Benedict and Richard Speight Jr. are sort of they do all of those, they're supernatural actors, and Rich is a director. But they also do the cons. The supernatural cons. They tend to be the hosts of that. And so they put together during quarantine, a podcast that you could tell was not something that they were planning. They were just bored and trying to give us some content. And it took Rich like 3 or 4 episodes to get his mic plugged in. And I have never felt so seen and validated in my life. Because Rob kept giving him crap about it. And I was like, thank you. Also, Rich's kids come in like 400 times per episode, which also helped me feel good about my chaotic life. But anyway,
because you have kids at home, and what are their ages?
My kids are 8 and 3, and toddlers should never be quarantined. So we'll just say that. So Lord knows what you hear in the background.
I know, but I have to say, I feel like your toddler is way better behaved than my 2 cats, who like every episode they do something to mess things up, and you just kind of roll with it and edit it out. And in terms of the research that we do before recording an individual podcast, a lot of the work that we do tends to be episodic based. So they'll come out with an episode of the show, and then we'll record an episode about that. And usually we do 1 or 2, sometimes 3 about that episode. And so that tends to be a little bit more structured. We'll kind of have a conversation about what we saw. We'll watch the show a couple of times. Like we'll watch it on the night and have all the fun and the fangirling squeeze. And then we'll go back and like watch it again with a more critical eye. And we'll kind of generally have like, we have a little, I did like a little outline for what we're doing today. We'll have something like that. That will kind of reference loosely to get going and kind of talk about, okay, well, spitballing, what are we going to talk about for this episode? And then do we want to split it into 2? Do we want to do just 1? You know, that kind of stuff. That part tends to be a little bit more structured in terms of the research. And then we've done a few episodes where we'll kind of look at the history of a character, and in that case, we'll kind of both go back and look at key moments just to refresh our memories and come up with some themes about what we want to do. And I think, you know, one of the things that I love about fangirling is that, and having an academic background, is that the two are very similar. And I say this a lot, like both fangirling and academia are fascinated with the minutia of things. So we really like digging in there and getting into all of the nitty-gritty details and figuring things out. And so I think that's why, for me, fandom is so appealing, because it does something that I already love to do, which is to get into the details of something and figure out what makes it tick and what makes it work and what makes it exciting. And so I love the crossover there. And I think that it also helps us, our academic background helps us to be kind of organized as we're doing our individual episodes and thinking thematically and thinking, you know, what is it that we want to hit in an episode? Do you agree?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, because I misinterpreted the question and you interpreted it. I was thinking like the whole thing rather than episodes, but I think one thing just to add to that is that one of the things that we sort of played with, or at least I did, I think we both did, is that at the beginning when we were recording, we would have full researched outlined episodes.
Yes.
And we figured out that actually didn't work for us, because part of what works is the genuine, authentic reactions.
Yeah.
So I might I have my own notes now when we go in about things that I want to bring up, but I don't want to tell you them all ahead of time, because I want to hear you squee about it or be like, you know, I want that. We want to capture that. And so we actually had to limit ourselves in our post episode, like post Supernatural episode chats. We've had to be like, we have to stop talking now, because we're doing the whole podcast through DMs right now and we got to stop. But, you know, we've had times where we've recorded right after the episode, even though it went, you know, even though we end up recording until midnight, 1 o'clock, because we wanted to capture that, you know, because it was so exciting. I remember the premiere of season 15, episode 1, we did it right after, and it was just like high-pitched squeeing for like an hour, but that was fine. That was appropriate.
It really was.
But that's one of those things that trying to like, I remember we did an episode on curating social media and timelines, and that one was very strictly outlined. And it was also when we were on a communication platform where there was a lot of lag. So we couldn't, it was very much like, I'm going to talk for a while and now I will pause. And then you will talk for a while. And I remember hearing that and being like, you know, this content is really good. And I think it's really important, but like, we're not getting that like back and forth like we're doing here, where we can really play off each other in real time. And that I think was a big turning point for us when we recognized like, no, we got to get this like conversation thing, like lag free. and then go from there. And I think that has made a big difference for us.
I agree. Absolutely. What do we want to talk about next? Man,
you had promotion down here. Do you want to talk about like the promotion?
Oh, yeah. So one of the things that I think is good if you're going into something that's new is to kind of think outside of the box and think what skills you bring to that. So I had never done any kind of podcast promotion before, but years ago I was involved in dog rescue. So I had learned how to make graphics, and I hadn't done it in years. And I had learned how to get word out about stuff, and all that kind of stuff. So I was able to use those skills once we started promoting the podcast to get graphics out, because one of the things that tends to get more attention is if there's a graphic associated with the print, the words and the details on a tweet or on an Instagram post or wherever it is that you use your platforms to kind of spread the message about what it is that you're doing. For us, it's primarily Twitter, because that's where we started. And and we both love the Twitter platform. So that's kind of where you can see the most information. So yeah, and just another thing is learning how to use hashtags that will reach your community. So for us, because we're in the supernatural fandom, if we come up with a brand new episode that's about a recent supernatural episode, we'll hashtag supernatural, hashtag the SPN family, which is one of the big hashtags that's used in the fandom. And then we'll also use the individual title of the episode that we're talking about, because that's a way that within our fandom people find content on the most recent episodes. So we've done a lot of that too. And Chrisha's kind of been taking over the Instagram panel for me, which I know you hate it, but like you're so much better than I am at getting stuff up there. So I'm always like, thank you, Chrisha.
We should. Yeah, I do think that at the beginning, one of the things that you did or you thought of that I thought was so brilliant is for a logo for us, because that was another one that I was like, I have no idea. Like, I can't draw. I don't know what I'm doing. That you had the idea to commission a prominent fandom artist. And so we have this gorgeous logo from Geo. And I still love her work because you turned me on to her work. So, I feel like I always had the mentality of like, if you're going to start a project like this, you have to figure out how to do all this stuff yourself. And it's not that hard. It's figuring out who to ask to do things for you or who to pay to do things for you, because, it was great to be able to commission art from a fandom artist and then to be able to pay them for that, to support these people that do these incredible works for the fandom, most of the time for free, most of the time just because they want to. So, so that was great. And we just gave her a few notes like, well, we're thinking we'd like some wings and maybe a book and I don't know. And she was like, bam, here's this gorgeous thing. And we're like, yes.
Yeah, and she was so she's on, if anyone's interested in who actually did that, her name is Gio, that's GIO _ GUI. And she charged us a really fair price because she loves the fandom, and she included everything that we needed. So we had a large logo, a small logo, a transparent logo with a background so that we could put different things like behind it if we wanted to change colors seasonally, or like right now we've got Pride color months going on because we're doing a Pride series. And I'm just going to see if I can find it here really quickly to show everybody, because she did such a nice job. It's gonna, sorry guys. Yeah, here we go. So you can, it's like kind of, but like she did a whole thing for us. and she did such a great job. And we can change the background on it whenever. So, yeah, so she did a great job. And I love, like, thank you for bringing that up, because it was nice to support fandom, like someone in the fandom, as we were doing something for the fandom. And it helped with the professional look of it. And I knew how to do that because, again, I'd done work in rescue, and we had to come up with logos so that we'd be recognizable. So, that was kind of a background from that as well. Yeah. Yeah, like, don't be afraid to pull on fandom resources. We've talked to, like, we've done stuff with Geo. We've done stuff with people who have done edits, like audio edits and video edits that fit in with the theme that we were doing. We reached out to people and said, "Hey, can we use your beautiful audio that you put together for the beginning of our podcast?" And people are thrilled to do that, and we promote them in the audio, and then also when we tweet about what's going on. We've had people who have been at live events who have recorded stuff from, like, the actors, just little snippets, and we've asked for permission to use their audio, and they've been really excited about doing that too. So don't be afraid to involve people in the fandom who have other areas of expertise that can help enhance what it is that you do, and at the same time you can also promote their work and the beautiful things that they're doing. And because this is, a panel and a convention about feminist creators, like, all of these people that we've been working with have been women, because women are very predominant within the supernatural fandom, and there's a real female powerhouse of talent out there to pull from. So it's women supporting women as well as fans supporting fans, which is really nice. Yeah,
and even just including people, like, if we're recording a podcast about a certain episode of Supernatural and we've seen an insight that someone had on Twitter, like,
right,
wanting to talk about that, like, we'll reach out and be like, "Hey, like, can we talk about your tweet? Like, is it cool if we mention you?" And usually they're like, "Oh my God, yeah." And are excited, to have that. And so it gives us really cool content to talk about, because, like, the people in this fandom are brilliant. And so, yeah, it's just like an all-win situation, like, just lots of winning for lots of people. And it's just
absolutely
fun. It's just a lot of fun.
We do. We have so much fun. Like, I think that's the main thing is, if you're having fun, people are going to sense that you're having fun, and they're going to be drawn to that. And we always have a ton of fun. Like, we laugh so much. I always come out of every recording session feeling better. Even if we were talking about something heavy, it could be, like, cathartic to just like talk it through. And there's always laughter. Like, there's always moments of joy in the making of this. And it's a really special friendship that's developed out of this as well, which I've been really grateful for. And so I think that's, like, all the if you have joy in the making of it, people are going to pick that up and be excited about it. And we have a really lovely group of people that follow our fandom. Over quarantine, we haven't been doing as much because life has just been crazy. But we've been doing things like having Zoom meetings where we, like, meet with people live, and we've had people there from all over the United States and from England and from Israel, and just have a really great time. Yeah, all over. And it's just lovely and I think one of the nice things is when you put out that kind of energy, you attract really lovely people. And so we've been really fortunate to have such great people who are just so fun to interact with, not only on Twitter, but live. We've had some really great conversations with people that listen to our podcast and have awesome questions and make us think more. And sometimes we'll also reach out before we're doing an episode and sort of say, like, is there anything that you guys want us to talk about? Is there anything that you know, do you have any burning questions or ideas that you want to share with us so that we can be responsive in that way too?
Yeah, I think that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. This happens all the time.
Yeah, we edit this out.
Yeah.
No, I think that leads in really nicely to one of the things that I think makes our podcast different than others in the supernatural fandom, is that, so to describe the culture of the supernatural fandom a little bit, and I think that this is a relatable culture to lots of fandoms, is the ship wars, right? So people ship, and then people argue about their ship, and, you know, people fight to the death over over their ship. And within the supernatural fandom, one of the, well, easily the biggest ship is Destiel, which is Dean and Castiel. And it's a hot topic, man. It is beloved by many, 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 many people, especially many, 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 many queer women, as something to relate to. That's something that's I don't know, just like really meaningful. And even though it's not well, depending on who you talk to, not a canonical ship at this point, maybe ish. There's a lot of controversy surrounding it, and there's a lot of, well, you and I are newbies, right? So Supernatural has been a fandom for 15 years. I came in to the show in 2012, but the fandom mostly, I don't know, 2018, 2019. And for you, it was?
For me, I started watching the show in the fall of 2017, and then I joined the fandom in the spring, in the winter of January, like in January, 2018. So it all kind of happened pretty quickly for me, and I literally joined Twitter because I wanted to get to know more of the behind the scenes stuff. And then I discovered this incredible fandom. So yeah, we're both really new to the fandom.
Yeah, like relatively. But yeah, the culture when I came in, at least, was that if you shipped Destiel, you needed to just not talk about it. It was like the hush hush, like, you know, you just sort of keep that to yourself kind of a thing. And I was kind of surprised by that, but, you know, I didn't want to like make waves. I was new. But, you know, I started, you know, finding more fandom friends that also had something about that ship that really resonated with them, that was really personal and healing and meaningful and all of these things. And that's part of how you and I met, and you and I bonded, because it was like, you know, on the main timeline, we're just sort of like talking about regular things, and then somehow through DM, it was finally like, do you ship Destiel? And you're like, yeah. And we're like, I do too. You know, it's like the sharing of secrets. Which is so funny, because for those of you who read fan fiction are aware of it, Dean and Cass have the most fics on AO3, like by a wide margin. It is by far the most written about ship,
which blew my mind when I found out about that. I was like,
yeah, and that's of any fandom anywhere, it's the biggest ship. So it's wild that it's like, you know, wasn't talked about. So when we were recording this podcast, we were trying to keep that out, because
we were worried about like turning some people off, and we were worried about shipping wars and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And if you include one ship, then are you excluding others, and all that kind of stuff. And we wanted to be very like open to everybody, I think, was kind of like our feeling.
Yeah, and I think that there's a when you think about romance, that is typically, or stereotypically, I guess, linked to women, right? So women are quote unquote the ones that look for romance everywhere, which then by definition is lesser, or, you know, or therefore not as valid or important. And there was definitely that kind of a vibe, I think, in talking about Destiel and shipping. And so, yeah, we were just like, okay, well, we're just not going to do that. And I think that part of how things evolved for us is, first of all, the subtext became so loud that it really became text. And so it became really difficult for us to talk about it authentically, to talk about what was happening on the show authentically without talking about shipping or what the subtext says. And Supernatural is very purposeful in its subtext. Like they're doing
a lot of their subtext is ship related. Like that's what a primary amount of the subtext is on that particular show. I need to enunciate.
Yeah. But I think, you and I sort of realized what we were doing, and at some point realized, like, why are we censoring ourselves on our own show for the comfort of other people and not talking about something that is so important to us, that is so important to other people, that is so important to queer representation, just because the culture has said that that's not something that we're supposed to talk about in polite conversation or whatever. And that was another one of those really profound turning points for us, I think, is when we were like, we're going to talk about it.
Yes.
we're going to talk about Dean's sexual orientation, and we're going to talk about, you know, and that's not, we aren't there to preach about it. We're not there to convert anyone. It's just about giving voice and legitimacy to other people that see it too, and who get meaning and healing and, you know, joy from it. So instead of it being this like hush hush kind of thing, just like putting it out there and celebrating this wonderful aspect of this show. So that's been super fun.
It has. And people really responded. And we tried to go about it in a way that was respectful when we started doing it. So we asked people, like, how would you feel comfortable if like encountering this kind of content? And the response that we got, and that we'd kind of already felt ourselves, was we'll have non-shipping episodes and then shipping episodes, and you know, sometimes we'll label them subtext episodes, sometimes we'll label them shipping episodes. It kind of depends on how open or subtexty they are. But people, I think, we quickly discovered that people were hungry for this kind of content. And so really our shipping episodes have some of our highest numbers for all of our episodes, specifically the Dean cast ones that we do. They're not the only ship that we talk about. So canonical ships within the show, we've talked about different pairings that are canonical. We've talked about other pairings that are beloved, but are not canonical, but people get excited about. So we've covered, you know, a range, but I'd say that's the primary one that we talk about, because that's the one I think that gets us personally the most excited. And it's got such a huge, there's a huge part of the fan base that loves this particular ship. So people really are excited to hear content about it, you know, when a lot of places don't really talk about it. So I think sorry, what were you going to say?
It's just that we apply our academic skills to the ship. And so we are able to take those skills and really break down, this is what people are seeing and why. Like, this is what people are seeing. This is the story that it tells for us.
Yeah.
And then this is what that therefore means, like emotionally, or, you know, whatever it is for us. And so I think, you know, we get feedback quite a bit actually from people who are not shippers, who are like, oh, well, I listened and I kind of like, I still don't ship it, but I get it now. You know,
yeah, I can see it now.
I see where you're coming from, you know, and I see why it's important. So even if it's not my thing, I get why it's your thing. And I really appreciate those kind of comments too.
Same. And I think the other kind of comments that we get a lot are that I also appreciate are the people who are like, oh, I thought I was the only person that saw that or felt that about that particular scene or that particular episode, and I feel so reassured that I'm not the only one, and you've given me tools to kind of talk about it with other people, so I don't feel so alone anymore, because I think that sometimes uh, different rivals within fandom can make people feel isolated and like they can't really talk about stuff, and so I always feel encouraged when we get those kind of comments too, because we're helping people to feel secure in what it is that they love and feel validated that, yeah, you're not seeing things. It's there. You know.
Yeah. And it's so nice because that ties back in beautifully to just the whole point of what we wanted to do with the podcast to begin with. You know, like we wanted to, there's so many people that when they made the announcement in March of last year that season 15 would be the last season of Supernatural, there were people that just lost it, you know, just like absolute sobbing mess, really just absolutely devastated. And, you know, I've done enough work and I've been fangirling enough of my life that I was okay with that. You know, like I'm going to just go ahead and cry for the next couple weeks. And that's okay. But there are a lot of people that isn't normalized for. There are a lot of people whose families were just like, why are you crying over a TV show that's so stupid? You know, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you watching, you know, why are you watching a panel with all these, you know, with all these dudes that are crying over a TV show? Like, this is so stupid. They'll just go on to another job. Like, why do any of you care? And it's like, well, because this is a community that's not just about a TV show. It's a place where people can come and they can talk about issues that the rest of the population maybe stigmatizes. You know, we have very, very open conversations about mental health in the Supernatural fandom because Jared Padalecki has been so open about his mental health struggles and started the Always Keep Fighting campaign. You know, we talk about the different dynamics and relationships and aspects on the show and applying that to real life and how challenging that can be. We don't just tolerate weird around here. We celebrate it. We want everybody to be their authentic selves. And, you know, this fandom specifically, I mean, today's the last day of Gish. We take fandom investment and we mobilize it to do good for the world, right? Like we've raised money through Gish, which is the greatest international scavenger hunt run by Misha Collins, who plays Castiel, to provide 1 million meals to kids who don't have food because they're not going to school because of COVID. You know, this is a fandom that truly is a family. That's why it's called the SPN family, because for as much as there are ship wars and bickering and infighting and all of that, this is a very deep emotional investment. And so we really wanted to normalize that. I mean, it's been normalized in many ways, but we wanted to be just yet another, you know, to really say like, it's okay if you need to cry, and it's okay if your family doesn't get it, and it's okay if your spouse doesn't get it. Come talk to us, come hang out with us, because we do get it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, you know, from the literary aspect of things, one of the things that I always like to say is that, you know, there's a reason that humans continue to tell stories and why we've told stories for generations. And stories help us to understand ourselves and see ourselves through this lens of fiction, in ways that we otherwise wouldn't be able to see. So I think sometimes people are confused by the fact that they get so emotional about a television show or a movie series or a game, like an online game that you play or whatever. But all of these things tell stories, and stories help us to understand ourselves. And so, a lot of people figure stuff out about who they are by watching television, and so there's a reason why things resonate on a very deeply emotional level, because we attach ourselves to the story. And especially with a show like Supernatural that has 15 seasons, even if you haven't been with it for the full 15 years, you have 15 seasons of story that you've been able to watch and love and see yourself in and connect with. And so it makes sense that there's going to be an emotional response to something like that ending, or to, powerful moments on the story, that you're going to have an emotional reaction to that. So I think from a story like perspective, from a literary perspective, that's kind of one of the things that I like to push home a lot, is that stories are in part important, and they help us to understand who we are, which is beautiful.
Yeah. Well, we are about at the end of our time today. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to throw them in. We are on Twitter at the Fangirl Biz.
That's B-I-Z or B-I-Z, depending on what country you live in.
We have like, I do the intro, she does the outro, and then suddenly I was doing the outro and was just like, this is wrong. I don't say these words.
Yeah. Yeah. We're on Buzzsprout. We're at the Fangirl Business.buzzsprout.com. But you can find us everywhere that you find your podcasts. We're on Spotify, iTunes, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Castbox, Stitcher. We're everywhere. So if you have a place where you go to find your podcast, we're probably there.
Yeah. We're on Instagram too, when I remember to update it.
Yeah. And as you can see on both of the bottoms of our screens, we're also on Twitter under the @ that are at the bottom of the screen there. So you can find us there too. And we're both really active. If anyone has any questions, if not, we can continue to banter for 3 minutes, because that's what we do, baby.
It is. I have Gish closing ceremonies right after this. So Gish is, like I said, it's a scavenger hunt, and I've somehow managed to captain a team for the last 2 years, which I'm not sure quite how that happened, but I have like marker all over me. Here, I'll show you what I'm working on. So Gish does this, like, they help you, I don't know, they do all kinds of bonker stuff. So one of the items is to make a piñata out of your imposter syndrome and then whack it.
Oh, I love it.
So,
that is awesome.
I have really bad imposter syndrome, so I'm going to go beat the hell out of that in a little bit.
Fantastic. I think you should also show everyone what amazing fandom art you have on your walls behind you, because, like, look at that, guys. I love just seeing everything that's on our walls. So we've got some Doctor Who, we've got some of The Hobbit, we've got Castiel, we've got Charlie from Supernatural, who's the redhead up there. There's a little bit of everyone.
We have new episodes coming out soon.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
That are Pride related, because Pride Month got, sort of sidetracked this year.
It did.
By necessity, which it needed to, but
we still wanted to celebrate Pride when it was appropriate to do so. So I'm hoping that we'll have an episode coming out tonight. So keep your eyes out, because I'm getting there with the editing on this one finally. Yeah. So this has been really fun, Chrisha.
It's nice to see your face.
Nice to see your face. And we're just really grateful to everyone who is doing SheCon 2020. You can follow the hashtag to see more about events that are going on. There's like one more day worth of stuff that's happening. So we're just really glad to have been invited. And I think it's great to celebrate what women do in fandom and how we add to just the powerhouse of creativity that's out there. So this has been lovely. I think now we have 30 seconds left.
I know, and that's the now what? Because I don't have an end button.
I don't have an end button
Here's a
either.
mute button. I knew Carolyn would rescue us. I knew it.
Thank you, everyone who watched the live stream. And coming up next, we do have a session with Rocket Fox on storytelling.
Ooh, that sounds like fun.
Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Thank
you for inviting us. Yeah. Bye.